everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome back into Two-Man Game here on ClaibsOnline.com. I'm Matthew Roccio. That's Bob Ramsey, and we're here to talk a little basketball again on ClaibsOnline.com. First of all, good afternoon, Rammer. How you doing today?
Rocc, I haven't talked to you in a while. I seen your work all over the place. We're both pretty busy guys right now. It's fun to get together and talk some hoops.
Absolutely, and I've been a little bit busy. I unfortunately haven't been able to dive into the NBA as much as I usually like to, but that's okay because today we're going to be talking a lot of SLU basketball. We've got 4 games that we haven't really got to break down yet. I was able to get to practice today to watch the Billikens get a little work in, talk to Fred Thatch Jr., talk to Travis Ford a little bit. So I want to dive into a couple of these games. They've been a couple big ones for SLU. Unfortunately, they have been big losses against Maryland and then against number 13th ranked Auburn. I want to dive in right away into the weekend at the Mohegan Sun, the rough loss against Maryland, the quick turnaround against Providence. Credit to Stu Durando of the Post-Dispatch who pointed this out to me, and I was able to watch some of the game I had saved after he pointed it out to me. When I was talking to him, I was like, what was the one takeaway you got from a thing like Maryland? And he was like, I really thought Javonte Perkins was moving better than he has the entire season up to that point through the first 3 games. And he followed it up by saying, but my follow-up to that was, but he hasn't moved as well after that game against Providence, Paul Quinn, and Auburn. And I went back and watched that Maryland game, and really it was the first time I thought laterally, just quickness-wise, quick little movements that I thought Javonte Perkins looked the most comfortable he had been up to this season. And then I saw some carryover against Providence and Auburn, maybe not to the level people you would want, but I still just think that the progression is there with Javonte Perkins. And by the time we talk about a conference schedule, I think we're talking about a Javonte Perkins that looks a lot more like what we expected.
Yeah, I won't even say dispute, a slightly different take up until your last sentence. I think that's the right timing. Quick reminder for folks, devastating knee injury. He is 53 weeks out of surgery. In my view, before he's as good as he's going to be, I think he's probably got another 20, 25 more weeks. So that means sometime next summer. And I'd say, yeah, that's usually how it goes. But to be as good as he's going to be. Now, is that the last couple of percentage points? Yes. I think by the time January rolls around, so another 5 weeks, maybe give it 6, that I think he is going to probably get to the point where we'll see what he's going to be in conference play. I agree with you 100% on that. I think right now he's a spot-up shooter.
But man, did he work on that. His shooting, take away anything you want to about him maybe not being 100%. There's nothing stopping him when it comes to, the last 10% when it comes to what he's able to do with that form and that shot. His shot is, it's impeccable right now. It's impressive.
So where I'm kind of in the middle, and if I were coaching him, I think you got to try and do whatever you do. I've seen, in this stretch of games we're talking about, maybe once or twice a game that he tries to do a move like he did 18 months ago and maybe 20 months ago, and it's not quite there. The explosives is not quite there, and would I prefer him to stop and go straight up for a 12-footer? Yes. But how are you going to get to that point if you're not trying to get to that point? So it's not necessarily a criticism. It's just more of an observation.
Absolutely. What was kind of your biggest takeaway from the turnaround, the bad game against Maryland to the turnaround to get a big win against Providence? What was your biggest takeaway in that not even 24 hours, just about 15-hour period from Saturday to Sunday?
That the coaching staff learned and taught to their team, this is how teams are going to defend us. And until we consistently beat this defensive game plan against us, this is what we're going to see, and this is what we have to do to beat it. We saw kind of the same thing against Auburn. I don't want to jump too far ahead. Should have won the game, but missed some free throws. So anyway, I don't want to get ahead, but I think we're seeing a blueprint that athletic, physical teams who are willing to sell out defensively, this is what they're going to do against the Billikens.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us right into, and literally, I don't want to take anything away, but a 43 point win against Paul Quinn College. There's not a lot you can pull away. This is you have the athletes, you have the shooters. When you have a better roster than another team, that's the kind of game that SLU should be able to put together. Because they're athletic and they can shoot the ball like nobody's business.
Our pal Earl Austin Jr. said it's kind of like going to the driving range to get your swing back. And the Bills appeared to do that. Auburn had something to say about it, but I think you're right about Quinn. That's one of those bye games, and that's just part of the landscape of college basketball today.
Yeah, and so diving right back into the Auburn game, because I think it's interesting what you said, because I thought right out of the gate that heavy, just we're going to put bodies in the paint and make the decision on how you want to beat us, and then execute it. And whatever happens there, what happens. I thought that was again what Auburn did, and I thought they definitely had some success with it early. Then I thought SLU was able to get out, play a little bit quicker, get into their offense a little bit more, and then it just bogged down in the second half. And I think the same thing kind of came to play. And they were able to just clog the middle, force SLU into a lot of bad shots in the paint, and just kind of slowly chip away at it.
Well, yeah,
and the free throws.
Everybody knows now, and proven by all three of those big games, that you can defend the three, but what are you going to give up? And if you've got a rim protector at the back, you're willing to take your chances. And so can the great athletic teams execute? We talk about bogged down. Oh, what are the Billikens doing? Well, they're trying to find a way to get a bucket against a team that's up in their grill. It's hard to do. I thought that the Billikens really played pretty well in the game, and in a hostile environment on the road against the 13th ranked team in the country. Normally, I don't say should, I say could, but this is one I say should have won. And if you make your free throws, you would have won. And that one sticks in your craw a little bit, because Auburn did what they wanted to do defensively, and you still found a way to win, but you couldn't pull it off because you missed free throws, which is literally the easiest thing to do in basketball, make free throws.
They call it the charity stripe for a reason, and it was just so aggravating because, 3 or 4 years ago, this, it kind of would have been a par for the course. It would have been another loss that free throws kind of bit the Billikens, but they came into this game 7th in D1 in free throw percentage. And so to have it pop up in that situation against the number 13th ranked team in the nation, that's an absolute heartbreaker. A couple takeaways from the game, because we talked about that offense getting bogged down. Something that I think we've seen as a through line through a lot of these games, not even actually full games, I should say stretches in these games where they've been successful offensively, is there is a unspoken connection between Gibson Jimerson and Yuri Collins. The ability for those guys to just read when a little bit of space opens, and for Gibson to attack it and Yuri being aware that he attacks it. Those moments and those stretches when those two just seem to have a mind meld on the court are undoubtedly the most successful stretches for SLU. And I thought you saw it big time against Auburn. When they got down early in the first, they got back with a lot of big threes. And a lot of those threes from Gibson were, first of all, they were on transition. And there's just, again, this unspoken thing where usually you think, okay, these guys look at each other, now it's a backdoor cut. But no. This time they look at each other and somehow they know Gibson's going to fake the backdoor cut and then pop out for the three. Okay. Or Yuri puts it right where Gibson wants it on a transition, and he puts it in a perfect place for Gibson not to grab the ball and finish with a layup. He actually puts it perfectly so the ball waits it and stops with Gibson so that he can pull up with it right in his pocket. That kind of thing, just knowing that Gibson's going to want it right there to shoot it instead of making a drive. Yeah, you think, well, he's a three-point shooter. That's easy. But in the moment as a basketball player, you're thinking a little bounce pass right in the lane. He gets an easy layup. But they know exactly what they're going to do. The stretches where they got Gibson the ball consistently, the offense hummed. And then in the second half, when they didn't do that, and late in the game, when he barely touched the ball, let alone getting any shots off, that's when the offense bogged down. And again, that's not only a criticism against SLU, because you have to watch that game and see that Auburn consistently, especially in the second half, was doing things to take away from Gibson Jimerson and deny him the ball. But it's undoubted, in my opinion, that those stretches when those two are together and they're working together and they're forcing the ball to Gibson, and not in a bad way, just they're feeding him the ball in spots he likes, the offense hums. And then when it goes away, that's where we're seeing, I think, the big lull so far.
And I want you to speak for all fans. If you were coaching against the Billikens, who do you say, this guy, I'm not going to let this guy beat us?
Yeah, it'd be Gibson.
And so the fact that they can connect as much as they do is really remarkable because Jimerson's a marked man. There's no doubt about it. And the number 2 marked man is Yuri Collins because of him being the head of the snake. Then you add Perkins, and the one guy that I'm going to beat the drum till I'm proven wrong, and maybe not till next April. I think Sincere Parker, when he gets more minutes, I keep thinking back to, where you keep talking about him. Where is this guy you keep talking about? I think look at the track Tremaine Isbell had in 2019, and it looks like Parker's on that same track. But what he does a few of the little things that Isbell, that really wasn't his strength because he was a smaller guy. Rebounds, deflections, grabbing loose balls, passing. Those are some of the things that Parker can bring to the table. And I think the more he does of those, the more minutes he'll get, and that'll get his game going.
I'd be interested to see Sincere Parker getting more looks in the offense with maybe Yuri on the court at the same time so that he's not having to make and create his own shot. Because that's been my thing with Sincere is I think they're so confident that his athleticism and his shooting can kind of have him be that off the bench second team scorer if Yuri needs a minute to breathe or the offense isn't going. But I would love to see what he could do if the pressure on that second team isn't on him and maybe the focus is on Gibson and on Yuri for a couple plays, and yet he's the guy who then gets the outlet and scores that way because I think he really has, and they've really leaned on him for that creation aspect. And he's such a young player. He has that in his game, but that's an experience factor when learning how to score against these kind of defenses, especially something like Auburn or Maryland or Memphis. You don't just come to D1 and are able to pull out your bag against those kind of teams.
What would really be interesting is if the Billikens elect to go small more often and play at times, although you're going to be challenged defensively, but could you ever play Parker, Perkins, and Jimerson at the same time? Not very often and not for very long stretches, but it might be kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, they've done that. I've been tracking kind of the 2-3-4 rotation, and they've put that one in pretty much every game for little stretches here and there. It hasn't popped offensively, but it also hasn't been deceived defensively that you maybe would. It hasn't nearly. I mean, you would expect it to be like a +10 offensively, -10 defensively and wash, but it's been more like a +3 offense, -3 defense kind of wash. It hasn't been the radical combination you really expect it to be.
And the thing is, when you do that, you don't want Pickett to be out there. Man, he has been good. What a find out of the portal, Javon Pickett. A glue guy, does a little bit of everything. Earl Austin talks about him on the radio side being Mr. Pump Fake, and he's a killer with the pump fake, whether he's 10 feet out or 2 feet out. And, if you play really small with him in there, it's everybody's a weapon then at that point.
Him on the short roll. I've already tweeted about it multiple times. Him on the short roll when they have him as the 4.
Yes.
And they get it to him quick, and then he's right there on the elbow, and he can either pull up to shoot, which he has on the most of the possessions, but it gives him, if they play him hard, the option to pass it out because he's got that ability. I love that wrinkle that they're using Pickett, and I thought what he was able to do against Auburn was so huge. I mean, anytime we talk about Fred Thatch always being able to guard any position, and he actually made a joke today. Somebody asked him what position he plays. He goes, guard, forward, center. I don't know. and he's so good, and the way he contests all those shots, I think we see a similar style from Javon, where it doesn't matter what size he is. He's the power forward on this team, 6'4", 6'5", whatever you want to call him. He plays bigger than he is, and I've really been pleased with Javon Pickett so far. Speaking of our conversation with Fred Thatch, one thing I wanted to bring from practice earlier today that we talked to him and Travis Ford about to you is the lack of turnovers that they've been forcing defensively. Kind of brought the conversation out. Is that maybe where the offensive malaise is coming from, is not being able to get those easy, fast break buckets? But both Travis and Travis and Fred pointed to the offense is actually hurting the defense right now because the shot selection at times has been so poor. Travis even said sometimes we're taking shots where nobody else on the team expects you to take the shot. And that's problematic because no one's ready to get back. And I just thought it was really interesting that when trying to focus on the lack of turnovers, which he's been so crucial about, and how turnovers create offense, and if they want to play faster, it's got to start with the defense. But it's kind of been the flip side now, where a quick offense and trying to speed up naturally in the half court is actually starting to hurt the defense because it's getting them out of position.
Yeah, I can see some of that happening. And I think if you can fundamentally execute your defense, I think the turnovers will come. And sometimes you just get the deflection and you don't get the turnover, and you're disruptive. I don't know if this is ever going to be a team that forces 20 turnovers a game on somebody. I'm not sure it's that kind of team, because they have to be so careful to be susceptible to the straight line drives to the basket. Sometimes you have to give a little bit. And what you don't want to do is overplay gambling for steals and missing. Now it's 5-on-4 and you're really compromised. So I think the numbers will start to balance out a little more favorably for the Billikens. Could be wrong, but I think that's what will happen.
Something to watch for as they face off against Tennessee State tomorrow night at Chaffetz Arena. It's a little bit of a later start, 8 p.m. tip-off. A couple quick little points there. Heavy dribble drive team. They take almost 9 threes per game, which is a very high number for what they've faced so far, and they've had some teams shoot a lot of threes already. So that's a quick little alarm bell to go off there. And just they screen like crazy. Their offense, they're always moving the ball. My favorite thing is that they do Spain pick and rolls, which is screen the screener, which is my favorite basketball nerd thing in the entire world. They do that a bunch, and they love just like little dribble handoffs into three-pointers. And so it's going to be an interesting game, and I know that scouting report, considering what has happened in a couple early SLU games, probably has fans a little bit nervous. But again, with the way that they've been playing defensively over the last 3 games after a rough start defensively in the first 4 games of the season, I think this will be a good test, despite maybe the Ohio Valley not usually being the bright star on your schedule. I think this is a great test for some of the questions we've had for SLU over the last few games.
No threes, no layups. How are you going to defend the screen, or as you say, screen the screener? How often can you switch and still have the advantage you want? When will you go try and get under screens? Very dangerous game to play. I understand sometimes why you do it, but I don't love it as a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And so can you get over screens enough? So seeing how they balance out getting over a screen and switching, I think will be really interesting. And I want to see the dynamic offense get going again. Like Earl said about Paul Quinn, I'm not saying Tennessee State is Paul Quinn, but I'm saying get back to who you are offensively. And Francis Okoro, kind of starting off this year like he did last season. Once the ball's in the into the post, I don't want to see any thinking. I want you to take it and make your move, or take it and kick it out. Dribbles and thinking, where do I go now? Which way do I turn? Looking around for the help. That's one of the things that's bogging down the offense, Rocc. Entry pass, good. Quick decision. And it's almost not relevant what the decision is, so long as you do it with confidence and it makes sense. You got the ball deep, make your move. Don't fade away, go to the rim. Make them stop you, or get it, kick it out, repost, but it's got to be quick.
Absolutely. We'll see if they can do that against Tennessee State tomorrow. Like I said, it's an 8 p.m. tip-off at Chaffetz Arena. That's going to be a good game. A little bit of a later tip-off, but if you're looking to do something on a Wednesday night, come join us at Chaffetz. I'll be there. Rammer will be there, obviously, on the sideline making the call.
You're going to be there? Good. You can buy me.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like a plan to me. Rammer, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, tell everybody a little bit about our friends at Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks of Missouri, where better service means better banking, whether it's in St. Louis proper, the East Side, in Granite and Jerseyville, out in St. Charles, or up in Northeast Missouri with 3 new branches. You always know you'll get the best service for whatever your banking needs are. It's Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
This has been the two-man game on ClaimsOnline.com. We'll be talking some more SLU basketball next time we're on. And don't worry, we're getting a little bit NBA in next time. Thank you so much, Rammer. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
As one of St. Louis's largest veteran-owned companies, St. Louis Acura knows what it means to serve. As we head into the holiday season, St. Louis Acura is collecting Toys for Tots for the United States Marine Corps and a clothing drive for local military charities and churches. Each donation can earn a gift from our boutique or a discount on a vehicle service or car wash. Please help us help others this holiday season, and thank you for helping St. Louis Acura become one of the area's top 50 fastest-growing businesses for 2021.